Welcome to the Paper Gains Podcast. This is episode number 1, and I'm Johnathan Rankin. I'm happy to be here, and I want to introduce my co-host here, Matt. Matt, welcome. Let's give the guests and let's give the audience a little bit about you and what we're going to be doing here.
All right, appreciate it, Johnathan. My name is Matt Magee. I'm a financial advisor here in Fort Worth, Texas, as well as hold the CFP, and so help a lot of clients from a financial planning perspective. Married, 2 kids, pretty standard there. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so Johnathan Rankin, I am the founder of Theorem Wealth Management. I'm an M-Force partner, so we partner together on a lot of things, and I'm happy to be doing this. I've got 2 young kids. They're 6 and 7, lovely wife, Melissa, at home. And, I've been in the financial industry doing financial planning and financial advising since 2007. So going on quite a long time here, and it's been a fun ride, but I love to help people plan their retirement, see them through that. And that's why we're really starting this show. And this is going to be, for you listeners, this is going to be a weekly show that we're going to do where we're going to just talk about the most recent and relevant topics that are going to matter to your retirement and your financial plan. So we're not going to get into individual stock takes, or we're not here to tell you exactly what to invest in, but we're going to be talking about concepts that are going to matter to you in your retirement. To us, that's what's important, because those are concerns that at least I see that our clients have. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Look forward to jumping into the topics, but really want this to be some of it will be super timely topics. Others will be evergreen, if you will. Kind of like the first one, Social Security. If you want to jump on in, let's do it.
Yeah, let's jump into Social Security. So this, what we want to talk about here is, I want your take, Matt. Do you feel like Social Security is going to go bankrupt at any point? You hear all of these stories around the trust funds ending in 2035. It's going to be depleted, and they're not going to be able to make 100% of benefit payments. We've got Doge that we'll get to in a little bit that's making a bunch of cuts in places. Is Social Security eventually going to be one of those cuts? And do you think, if you're 50 years old, is this something that you've got to worry about and take out of your financial plan because it might not be there?
No, I think there will absolutely be changes down the road, but I do not think at least in the foreseeable future, will go bankrupt. As much as entitlements are a large part of the national debt, I think there's a number of things that they can easily change, like raising the taxable wage base for Social Security, doing some sort of means testing for wealthy individuals that are claiming Social Security, you name it, raising full retirement age past 67. I think that's some low-hanging fruit.
So, but what do you say? What do you say to the people that look at means testing and go, well, wait a minute, I've paid into this platform for so long now because I've saved enough, and now I don't get it. I mean, what is that? What do you think that threshold should be for means testing? Are we talking billionaires? Hey, you got $1 billion, you probably don't need your couple $1,000s a month.
Yeah, I'm sure, just given that there's far more that are mass affluent that might have a couple $1 million portfolio, that it depends on how the trust performs, what the overall status of the government and these programs is. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to be frustrated. I have no question about that. Somebody's always frustrated. It's just a matter of who, and I don't imagine they'll wait till the very last minute to make any changes to this like they historically have. But
you don't think they're going to tackle it early, or you think it's going to go all the way to that 2035 timeframe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this kind of segues into Doge, the second one, but I mean, I did see that Trump said he was not going to allow Doge into Social Security, which I found interesting. But we'll see if that changes. But I guess it depends on how much efficiency and different things they're able to cut or get back to where they were. On another podcast, I heard that, I mean, in 2019, we effectively had pretty close to a balanced budget. And so it's really been since COVID that we've been running at like a $2 trillion deficit. And so obviously it would be extraordinarily difficult to get that 2 trillion back, but I don't feel like things were that much different. Like we weren't going hungry in 2019 versus 2025. I'm not sure where all that money is going. I know interest expense is much greater, but that's at least my thoughts as it relates to Social Security and Doge. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's going bankrupt for the sake of it not being there for someone, but I do think that they're going to have to kick this can down the road for probably right up to the deadline, like we've seen them do with debt ceilings over time. This isn't something that they're going to be proactive about, because I always think about who does Social Security impact? It impacts the largest voting demographic, and which politician wants to really anger that base. And so, I don't know what the solution is going to be, but I think it's probably going to take some time. But in terms of Doge, I want to know from you, what do you think? Are they doing the right things right now, or is it too much too fast? We're seeing all these layoffs. We're seeing them cutting all these different departments, just going through everything, it seems like, and to the fact that the president has to say, hey, don't touch this. Is this something where they're doing a little too much, or do you think it's the right amount?
Yeah, I sure don't have the courage to do that, but I mean that's Elon's tactic. I mean, it seems to be exactly what he did with Twitter. I mean, they went from I don't know how many employees they had when he bought it for what 44 billion, I believe. But I mean, they got it down to maybe 2 or 3 thousand employees, and nothing materially broke. And he's taking that effectively same playbook to the government. Is it necessary? Probably yes. As I mean, you've got hundreds of years of buildup of some of these programs. Is it extremely painful for the people that have lost their job? Yes. Yeah. So
if you're
like
but if you're an investor, let's say if you're planning your retirement, let's say you're not in the public sector, and you're starting to see these layoffs, should you worry that these layoffs are going to just hurt the overall economy, push us into recession, and see the market impact from that as well? Is that something that when you're talking to clients that that you're talking to them about?
Yeah. Well, what I've been following the most as it relates to kind of Doge and Social Security and the government debt is really the 10-year Treasury, which like a month or two ago, people were worried it was going to 5%. I didn't look at it today, but it has materially come down. And that I think is largely driven by some of this government efficiency and just getting the bond vigilantes, if you will, at bay. So I think from that perspective, yes, it's positive. Obviously, the past 2 weeks or so have been volatile in the equity markets, even though NVIDIA blew away earnings yesterday. I did see the stock was down, and for the most part, the market was down last time I looked today. So I heard, or I saw a headline calling it the Trump slump. Who knows how long that will last? I mean, we kind of went through those first few weeks in January before he took office. And so it's hard to say. I mean, I think volatility is for sure here to stay for the foreseeable future until these tariffs get resolved.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think that with whatever president won the election, they're going to have a lot of pain that they've got to inflict at some point during their tenure. And if you're if you're the president, you go, all right, well, I can do this in the beginning and just try to get over it by the time my term's up. And by the time the term's up, everybody's hopefully happier because we went through the pain, as opposed to delaying it and having to face it towards the tail end, which will in this case bleed into the Republican Party for the next person that's running. But we're not a political show. I just think through that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of what you said. It's definitely, it does feel in general that society and America as a whole is not one to suffer through things for too long. So, is this absolutely necessary? Yes. Is it enjoyable? No. Does it help put us potentially on a better path? We'll see. But it's definitely unorthodox in how he's going about doing this.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the 10-year treasury, and that kind of brings up the next topic. Warren Buffett. He, in his last letter to his shareholders a couple of days ago, talked about how much he's got just sitting on the sidelines in things like treasuries and treasury bills and bonds. What is your thought on the $300+ billion that he's sitting on, and do you think that he's going to at some point put that to work this year, or is that just something that he's going to set up his successor with this war chest to be able to show the next evolution and the next stage of Berkshire is going to be able to be successful making acquisitions?
I mean, never count him out. I think is a wise way to go about doing it. I think just given the size of, I think it's like 330 something billion in that war chest, do I imagine he puts at least some of it to work? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's mid 90s at this point. Hopefully there's no, I know he's waiting for some sort of major correction ideally, but hopefully that does not come to fruition this year. But would I like to see him do one last major acquisition? Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
What could he buy at this point?
Yes and yes.
But that's the thing. What could he buy at this point that would make a dent that he could actually buy? Because it's such a large amount now that anything he buys, it's gonna take him so long to buy that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the challenge that they face. I have seen he's been investing a ton in Japan in some of those holding companies, and that's kind of the extent of what I know about there. But I definitely think he is absolutely setting up the successor to have a significant war chest to deploy when timing is right.
If you're an individual investor like the clients that we work with, and you're focused on your retirement, and you see one of the richest people in the world stacking this much on the sidelines, is that something, should clients be worried about that? Should they be thinking, hey, if he's stacking on the sidelines, maybe I should be too?
Yeah, I think to a degree. I mean, there's wise things that he does that an individual investor can emulate, if you will. I will say, trying to mirror what a billionaire is doing, even if you have hundreds of millions of dollars, much less somebody with maybe 1 to 50 million, is usually a fool's errand. Like, you see these hedge fund guys and billionaires go on CNBC and other sites hyping a specific stock or a strategy, and then you get clients asking you about it, and 99% of the time it doesn't make sense for the individual investor at that level. They're playing a very different game. They have companies and their assets, individual investors' assets, institutions' assets that they can deploy. Just like Warren has 300 billion. That being said, is it prudent to evaluate your portfolio, rebalance periodically, take some of those gains off the table, have cash set aside or consistent cash flow to meet your needs over 1, 2, 3 years to ride out a storm? Yeah, absolutely. Individual investors can absolutely do that, and it allows them to sleep good at night and allow the assets where they are taking risks to continue to compound even if there is a downturn, or even deploy more cash into those strategies. So from that perspective, yeah, absolutely. I think individual investors can take something away from that strategy.
Okay. Well, this kind of brings us up to the next topic that you brought up, which is, it's tying into Warren Buffett. One of his largest holdings, I think it is his largest holding, is Apple. And you had some thoughts on Apple. What were your
yeah yeah, these are definitely intertwined. Good order set up. So a lot of that 300 billion, to my knowledge, came in part from him paring back some of his massive gains in Apple. I believe they started investing in Apple back in like 2012, 2014, somewhere in there. But he has trimmed that position and is now sitting in cash. And I guess before we dive into Apple, by no means is this about the individual stock performance. This is more about them as a company as it relates to innovation and the products. Obviously, it's a cash generating machine, but a lot of the criticism of Apple is they haven't developed any innovative products since Steve Jobs and the iPhone 18 years ago. Probably you got in the
you're not a
business
big fan of the Vision Pro?
Yeah, yeah, not spending $4,000 on that or $3,000, whatever it was. Yeah, you heard about that for about 4 weeks and haven't heard about it very much since then. Yeah, and then obviously AI has been on everybody's mind for going on 3 years. Apple released Apple Intelligence, but Siri still, I've never really utilized it. Like a longtime iPhone user, but I also haven't upgraded my phone in 5 or 6 generations because I don't feel like it's worth the value there. So
Well, I'm a little different than that, as you know. I mean, you got to have the latest, in terms of the upgrades there, man. You don't like Apple Intelligence because I don't think your phone can run it.
Yeah, it cannot. I know for a fact it can.
So if you're thinking about, the next 5 or 10 years, one of the things that we've always, heard and have talked to clients about is, the biggest companies in the world that were, you think of the IBMs in the past, the Kodaks of the past, the Xeroxes, those were at one point were the biggest companies. Apple's the biggest company, or one of them today. If you fast forward 10, 15 years from now, you think that they're going to be able to stay there?
Yeah, they've got kind of like Warren's cash file. Like they've got so much cash that if some device does come along, they can copy it, they can acquire it potentially, or build their own version of it. I think they have such a massive moat around like iPhones and that 30% that they collect on all purchases in the Apple Store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it maybe isn't the top 1 to 3 what NVIDIA and Microsoft, but I have to imagine unless something drastically changes, which it very well could. I mean, AI is changing everything, robotics, uh, wearables, Meta's making a big bet on that with Ray-Ban. It's just not there yet. If I had to give you a firm answer, I'm saying still in the top 10 in 10 years.
All right,
Just
we're going to
from
mark that down so that way we can come back to that 10 years from now when we're, a little bit more
yeah,
gray hair and we're still doing this thing. That's going to be
yeah, that
marked
sounds
down.
good. Yeah, you can
So
utilize your Apple Intelligence to remind us of that
that's
prediction.
right. That's right. Well, that leads us to our next topic, which is, I love this one, and I had to bring this up, which is physical gold. We've kind of talked a little bit about what Doge is doing on the debt side, trying to tackle that 36 trillion that we've got in debt, and then the ongoing deficit that we're running. And one of the concerns I hear from clients is that we've got so much debt that at some point the U.S. dollar is going to be worthless. Now's the time where I need to put my money in physical gold. What do you say?
Mhm. Yeah, I usually push back on that just because where can you spend physical gold? What can you actually do with it? Uh, Normally, it's clients buy some and they put it in a safe and then they kind of forget about it over a period of time. Uh, I think if things ever got to the point where physical gold is required, I think we have much bigger problems. But
Yeah,
I,
it's at an all-time high right now. You think
yeah,
so?
I'm not opposed to having gold exposure. I just think there's better ways to the gold ETF or doing it in some way that is just easier to pass on, to utilize, to track. It's just easier while accomplishing the exact same goal.
I'm
Because
gonna push back though, Matt. If we're in a world where we need gold, you can't cash your ETF because the ETFs. Who knows if that gold's in that vault somewhere? It's kind of like
yeah,
Musk trying to get into Fort Knox to see if it's even there on
yeah,
that side. So I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. I think that it's absolutely one of those scare tactics that people see on a 2 a.m. commercial.
yeah.
To put all of your money in physical gold because it just like you said the liquidity aspect of it. If we get to that world, you probably need more than just gold. You're going to need some store of food, things like that. World as we know just is going to be a lot different. And it's kind of like those zombie movies that you see and you just go, okay, these are the apocalypse movies. I don't know if I want to be around at that time. I just maybe I'll be like the captain of the Titanic and just go down with the ship. Maybe that's just the way I'll look at it.
Yeah.
All right. So our last topic for the day, I want to go through is, this thought about Roth money being where people should put their money, because, uh, we've had pre-tax retirement accounts now for decades, and the popularity of Roths have gone up in, increasingly every single year, especially as 401ks adopt them. And now that 401ks, it's becoming, much wider adoption across the board, to the point where company matches are actually allowed to be in Roth dollars. Granted, you have to pay taxes on them. The question remains, should you abandon the pre-tax model because that's just going to create these issues and RMD issues down the road for the Roth model? Is that something, is the pre-tax run of collecting all the dollars, is that over?
I wouldn't say it's over by any stretch. I mean, if you're a high earner and you want that deduction, you have to go traditional. At the end of the day, the IRS is going to get their money one way or another. They either get it on the front end or the back end, and so it really just it's beneficial to have Roth, traditional, as well as like taxable investments. As you know, it's all about filling up all of those buckets. And so it really just depends on your specific situation, what you're trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, having Roth is great. Getting the deduction is great. It's really.
Well, let me ask you this. So if you're someone who's got, I've ran across this scenario, with a lot of people that are, anywhere between that kind of 50 to 60-year-old range where, for their entire career, all they've known, all they've had access to for the most part was pre-tax. And now they're at the point where all of their assets, and it could be a significant amount, are in pre-tax assets, but at the same time, they're at their higher tax bracket years because they're at their peak earning season. Even though they're at the highest earning season, would it make sense to switch into Roth now just to start filling up a bucket they don't have access to?
Yeah, I would say in that situation, if they don't have any Roth money at that time and are okay giving up that deduction, yeah, absolutely. I've helped plenty of clients utilize that. Okay, like you get a couple decades into your career, you kind of figure out, or you get to the point where, okay, your 401k and future IRA might be a few $1 million. That's going to be a pretty significant RMD at 73 to 75. And so filling up that Roth bucket makes a lot of sense. And so then you, while it won't be the same size, it at least gets you started, if you will. And then, as you know, there's always smart distribution strategies to get some of that traditional money into your Roth that, depending on when you retire, other income sources, all of that. And that's more of a individual discussion, but everybody's focused on getting money into these accounts, but at some point you got to unwind them. And so it definitely, to your example, in that case, I would absolutely start filling up that Roth as long as you're okay giving up that deduction.
Perfect. I love it. Well, we're going to wrap up here with 1 minute. We got a 1 minute wrap up, Matt, where I just want to know, what is your one thing that you're focused on right now, in terms of, is there anything that you're reading about that you're worried about in the economy, the markets? And I'll start off. For me, it is the employment side of things. It's something that, I look at as kind of this canary in the coal mine. And I think Doge is kind of setting some of that up, but we're seeing other cuts across, the private sector as well. And I'm kind of a little bit worried about the consumer. That's just something I'm focused on. What would you say you're focused on?
Yeah, I think you hit on a good one. I would say AI, and just if spending continues, because obviously NVIDIA is a huge driver of the market performance the past couple years. And so can that continue? Do these companies continue to spend at that level, like Microsoft saying that they're good for their 80 billion of CapEx? Like, how long does that continue? Because obviously that has implications throughout the broader economy and market.
I love it. Well, we're going to check in with that next week. That is the end of our first episode here, Matt. So I'm happy to be doing this. We're going to be back every single week. You got to hit that subscribe button. We're going to be on YouTube and all of your favorite podcasts, wherever you watch them or listen to them. But I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you guys are listening. And Matt, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. See you next week.